What does the theory of constraints actually say? The output of any system is governed by its constraint. If this were not the case, the output would be infinite. What does that mean? Essentially, it's a law of physics, like gravity. Show me a company that makes an infinite return on investment and I'd have to close down. I would no longer need my services, as the theory would no longer apply. However, suppose it were true that there was such a device as a perpetual motion machine. In that case, I'd be absolutely thrilled because I could make a finite investment into this unconstrained company and get myself an infinite return. It's a win-win. So please, if you invent a perpetual motion machine that makes an infinite return on investment, let me know. The opposite is also true. If there's no constraint, the system output will collapse to zero because you'd have nothing keeping it in place. In the business world, you'd go broke. You'd stop the project, and you don't get to play that game anymore. Just like gravity, that's a law, not an opinion. Let's have a look at some of the implications of this law of constraints. Constraints govern the rate at which value is created. It's essential to understand the implications of this statement fully. If constraints govern the rate at which value is created, then our number one obligation as systems thinkers is to know what they are. But how do we find them? We're all familiar with a situation where there's a person or a small group of specialists who are critical to everything and are getting demands put on them from everyone. A big clue to uncovering the constraint is to look for the biggest buildup of work in process. A buildup of work in process means that something is blocking the flow. Any system has one constraint that has the most impact. A gain for the constraint is a gain for the system as a whole. Now, here's a singularly important maxim. A constraint must do only that which only the constraint can do. Often it's the case that constraints are off doing work that non-constraints could so easily do. To illustrate the idea, you'll often hear the cry that we don't have enough policemen or we haven't got enough nurses. But how many people who are qualified to go on the beat are on the beat? And how many are filling out pieces of paper that a clerk could? Likewise with nursing. I was working in one of the airlines in their engineering function. In a cost-cutting move, they eliminated all personal assistant jobs. Their incredibly talented and skilled engineers suddenly had to spend a significant portion of their day making all of their own travel and accommodation bookings, as they frequently had to visit the facilities where they maintained their aircraft. The mindset at budget time was that they had too little engineering capacity and had to employ more expensive engineers. It was penny wise to save on the costs of the personal assistants, but pound foolish to recruit more engineers. Let the engineers do only that which engineers can do, and delegate the rest of their work to the lowest level of the organization capable of doing it. In a recent assignment, we had a spectacular success that was so easy to do. I was consulting to a corporate training organization, and their business development people had carved out 2 hours each day for calls. They had the leads, and they devoted these 2 hours to just doing the calls. I asked them to mark down everything they do in a day that is not speaking on the phone to people who will buy a seat on the course they were running. They documented everything they were doing which was not part of a sales call, such as order confirmations, invoicing, and chasing payments, and handed those tasks over to operations. The result was to double their sales capacity within a week without spending a single cent on another salesperson. This idea of letting the constraint do only that which only the constraint can do is such an unbelievably powerful idea that if you complete this course and learn nothing else, it will have been time well spent. But in my experience, there's an even more critical maxim. Non-constraints have capacity relative to the constraint. It's the flip side of the law of constraints. This consequence of the theory has profound implications. Generally, managers don't like to see people idle when they've got capacity available. Often, the workers themselves will get nervous, thinking, if I'm not doing something, somebody will sack me, so I might as well look busy. And if they're trying to act busy, generally speaking, they're creating work in process, making it difficult to separate the significant few tasks from the trivial many. The third implication is that if we say constraints must do only that which only the constraint can do, then what they offload must, by definition, go to non-constraints. You can and should use some time with the non-constraints to upskill them in certain areas so they can better perform the tasks that support the constraints. Or it could be something as mundane as fetching the constraints kids from school so they can have a clear run at getting through the particular bottleneck of the day. It's a shift to a different mindset and a new way of being. All these principles come together in the simple 5-step process we call the 5-step focus, which we'll look at next.